Thank you all for joining this event, this session. I'm Yannis Karamitskios. I come from Greece. I live here in Brussels. I work for the European Commission, but here I'm in a personal capacity as a federalist, as an active European citizen, joining my colleagues in organizing events about Europe, about the significance of these European Parliament elections, and also about what they mean for Belgium, for France, for Europe, and of course Ukraine, because this is one of the burning issues of our time. The people we have today is, first of all, Mr. Sandro Gozi. He is member of the European Parliament for Renew Europe for the French list. Mr. Gozi is also an active federalist. He has been also one of the presidents of the Union of European Federalists. I have to say, quite active. You refreshed a lot the movement in the recent years. It's Mariia Koshkina. She's a social activist. She's from Ukraine. She's based here. And she's running, I don't know how many networks, I lost counting, networks basically between Ukrainians and Europeans, focusing very much on entrepreneurship. It's a difficult word, on business, but also awareness about the issues that concern Ukraine. She will tell you more. She told me some fascinating stories in a private coffee we had before. I would really like that she shares them these stories with you too. And Mariia Griminger, the president of JEF Belgium, of this organization here, also very active, and she will definitely give us a very good insight about the campaign of the movement of young European federalists, also in view of the European Parliament. So I would just like first to make a short introduction, at least some points from my side, because I believe that, as always and increasingly, the stakes are high this year for the European Parliament. I will speak first of all from a maximalistic federalist point of view. I have written this book. It's called Time for a European Federation. It was published 2 years ago, just 1 month before the Russian invasion. So it doesn't cover that topic. However, the idea remains alive and even more actual, that the book and also the Federalist cause calls for a more integrated Europe, a more united Europe, because it is impossible anymore to face the big challenges of our time without moving to the next step, which is a united sovereign federal republic. It doesn't sound as utopian as you think. We are already 60% federated. Only at 60% of national laws are laws which transpose European legislation adopted in Europe. We have a common currency. We have a common open zone, the Schengen zone. We have common policies in numerous sectors, like international trade. Since 2020, we started having even a common health policy that was unprecedented for European history. We have common management of the vaccinations for COVID. For the first time altogether, we issued a Eurobond, and we borrowed altogether $750 billion euros in order to establish this recovery fund. After the Russian attack, we started talking about European defense. So all these things accumulate over time. We get used to them, but if we see the big picture, we are moving step by step to the creation of the United States of Europe, like the United States of America. We have not made the big leap yet, meaning to abolish the sovereignty of national states, have a central government in Europe, a central parliament, central institutions, to have common foreign policy, common army. All these things, however, are about to happen sooner or later. This is inevitable. This is the time where we live. So these European Parliament elections, they will elect the Parliament for the next 5 years. This Parliament for the next 5 years will have to make critical decisions also about the federalization of Europe, For instance, should we abolish the national veto at the European Council that blocks us, that requires unanimity when we impose sanctions or when we adopt foreign policies? Right now, states like Hungary or some other states might block the course of the rest of the European Union. This is unacceptable. This has to stop. The European Parliament has already taken a position that this must be abolished. The Council needs to follow and accept this. We will need to go for reform of treaties. The European Parliament will play a role in this. The European Parliament will have to make decisions about a common, perhaps, immigration policy, about how to help Ukraine, not just financially, but also through more active measures like sanctioning, confiscating Russian assets, also sending military equipment. So in all these aspects, we will need a pro-European parliament, a parliament with a pro-European majority. When I say pro-European, I mean in favor of the values of Europe. We already have in the parliament agents of Putin. We already have in the parliament people who are not just Eurosceptics, they are fascists, or they are clearly against any steps to defend Ukraine, to defend democracy, to defend the existing European member states from any future Russian attack. This is why the stakes are high, are even higher than in 2019. And it is our duty, first of all, to call through our social networks, through our social media, through our personal contacts, people to turn out in the elections, vote for what you also believe. We do not necessarily need to ask people for which party to vote, but at least to send a message about the direction that they need to take. I will stop here as a general introduction. I think Mr. Gozi will be much more competent and appropriate to speak about this message and also to inform us about his agenda in view of these elections and what are the stakes.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here again. As I say, that we are after the publication of your book, Yanis, with you, with Mariia, and with Mara, and with you all. I think that as a matter of introduction, there are many reasons why we should call upon our leaders and our citizens for a federation now. And every day, I would say, there are new reasons. Today, the reason that I share with you is that when it is a matter of power politics, and when the world is now disorganized around power politics, how you give yourself the power or you're out of politics. And this is the choice that the European Union is confronted with. So it is clear that, the old international world order is falling apart. Look at the, growing number of wars. Wars, because there are not only two wars, there are two wars that particularly worry us, the aggression of Russia against Ukraine and what is happening in Israel and Palestine. But there are many other ongoing wars that mean that the old world order is absolutely over. We need to reorganize the world. At the moment, the organization of the world passed through the active role of empires, and this is not a judgment of values, but the size. The size and the power, military power, industry power of the United States is not the one of the nation state. It's one of the empire. China is more and more aggressive, and I think that finally we have woke up. I don't consider that China as a partner. I think that an indispensable actor to deal with, not with a partner. On that I disagree a lot with the mantra and the rhetoric also here in Brussels. But it is clear that it is with a big empire, aggressive empire like China, that we have to deal with to reorganize the world. Russia is an empire, and I think that we all know, and the Ukrainian knows better than others what I mean. But also, and then there is the reorganization of the world around interests, which are not the interests and not the values of the Europeans. So as the things stand like that, and I think that we all agree that things like that stand like that, it is clear that we have to decide to do what we haven't done so far, because until a few years ago, I would say, certainly at the beginning of our European journey, was a sort of oxymoron. Because if you had spoken, sorry, if you had spoken 30 years ago of the need to get to build up a European power, that we federalists we want to be democratic, because when, as a federalist, we talk about power, we talk about a euro that must build up some new aspect of sovereignty in a democratic way. That's the difference between federalists and data. We discover that we have to work together at European level. We come back that on. I will come back on that. But I mean, if you had spoken to some of us, and I mean, I deal with European issues. I've been dealing with European issues for a long time. I work in all the institutions at the top level. I think that I'm the only member of the European Parliament who has worked in every institution possible, even the Committee of the Regions. So if you had to talk to people like me, let's build up a European power 20 years ago, I would say, but that's an oxymoron. Europe was built up as an antidote to the use of power between European people and states, as an antidote to the use of nationalistic powers, which has brought to world war. And we thought that, I mean, about the time where we were talking, we are not putting in question the existence of multilateralism, but we are starting to talk about we need to make it effective multilateralism. Today, if we want to organize the world, we have to become a military power, an industrial power, and then financial investment power. And the only way of going along this road is a deep reform of the European Union. On that, I strongly disagree with the shyness of the European Commission on the excessive realism of many leaders around the European Council. We need a deep European reform, and we need also, therefore, the treaty reform, because we cannot give ourselves a military power, build up a truly European defense. We can give ourselves a truly industrial power. We can build up an investment union as we need, without also tackling the issue of treaty reform. And in any case, I always say to the leaders, don't listen to your advisors. Advisors are there not to be listened to. And as a former advisor, I can tell you, because it is clear that if you remain around the common wisdom, there will always be some apparently good reasons or some apparently insurmountable obstacle to say we need to revise the European budget. We need to introduce new own resources. We need to get rid of the veto. We need to, well, there will always someone say, well, I mean, it's impossible. How do you want to revise the budget? To introduce own resources, you need unanimity. It is very difficult to get rid of the veto because for a treaty reform you need unanimity. All these, aspects which can be overcome only through a strong political initiative. And this is why I think that these European elections are very important. It is not a rhetorical exercise to say that are particularly important. I don't know if they are most important European elections. I can't remember. I was a kid when the first time the European Parliament was elected, so I don't have an element to compare. It is clear that they're very important because they are entering a new historical phase. And when you are entering in a new historical phase, it is history who decides, not you. It's not that a generation of leaders, a member of the European Parliament, engaged and active citizens decide when is the time to respond to history. It's history that decides the time and decide whether you are able to respond to it or not. This is the time we are living in. And it's not something that you choose. It is something that it happens. It did. Altiero Spinelli didn't choose to live at the time of fascism. He didn't choose to be imprisoned by the fascist regime. Alcide Gasperi didn't choose to live two world wars, one The first time as an Austrian, because he was an Austrian citizen. The second time as an Italian. Konrad Adenauer, Robert Schuman didn't choose to be in power after the biggest mankind disaster, which was the Shoah and the Second World War. But they proved to be at the level of the challenge because they did the unthinkable and they did the impossible. And we shouldn't be so scared of doing the unthinkable and the impossible, because after all, we have done it in these years. Because if you had asked me once again, 7 years ago, Sandro, do you think that it is possible to issue Eurobond, to develop an extraordinary investment plan? I would say, I think it would be great. I think it's exactly what we should do. I think it's going to be very difficult. We did it. We did it. Because that's what we did with the recovery plan.
We had to.
Because we had to.
Because of the shock of COVID, yeah.
And as a compromise, we say, yes, but once, and temporary and absolutely exceptional. Yes, but Europe has always worked like that. So why we have to insist on make it permanent? Because we have on our side the evidence that it has worked. So this is another battle that we have to do. It has worked. And if we have to develop a European defense on this, I mean, we have to be honest. We cannot be hypocritical. I mean, those who say, yes, we have to do a European defense because like that we spend less money, each of the member states spend less money. They know that they are lying. Because it's not only a question of it's not a question of spending less, it's a question of spending better. Don't believe those who say a European defense which allow us to spending less. But we have to spending better, and we have to spend more as Europeans. Because the margin to spending more at national level are very limited, if not inexistent. So, as European, we have to spend more to ensure our defense, to ensure our security, doing what we have done against the COVID crisis, issuing Eurobond. And those who were particularly reluctant in going along this line are the first now to say, let's issue Eurobond, like our friend from the Baltic, like my friend Kaja Kallas. Good. But it's good. I mean, it's good because we realize if we hadn't done the recovery plan, probably nobody would have said, let's use the Eurobond for the financial. These are the issues at stake, and I just mentioned a few. They're the issues at stake. The last, but certainly not least, is the big elephant in the room, which I haven't mentioned so far. It is clear that must be at the center of our work in the next term. It is clear that we cannot unify the continent without reforming the Union. But we don't want to choose whether to unify the continent to reform the Union. We want to do both. Because it is clear that, I mean, the only responsibility of Mariia that was on the wrong side of Europe at a certain moment. But now the Ukrainians has decided to be on the right side of Europe. And they've decided to be master of their own destiny. And since 2014, they've decided to go along the European integration path. And when it was conceived by Attilo Spinelli, by Robert Schuman, the European integration process was started with 6 countries, not because it was an exclusive issue and thing, a privilege of those 6 countries, but because these countries were the only democratic country who could and wanted go along this line. Could, because they were on the right side of the Iron Curtain. Wanted, because differently from the Nordic country or the Brits, they decided to go along this. Today, it is clear that at the moment where there are countries who are under aggression because there is someone in Moscow that would like to decide for the future of those in Kiev, or there is someone in Beijing who would like to decide for the future of Taiwan, but that is another issue. But it's the same logic, imperialistic logic. It is clear that we have to say, of course, it is our geopolitical responsibility to open our doors to our friends and allies and Europeans from Ukraine, from Georgia, from the Western Balkans, etc. But there again, let's not fool ourselves. Let's not lie. It is simply absolutely impossible today to unify the continent without bold reform of the institutional decision-making process, of the budget, and of some key common policies starting from agriculture and cohesion policy. Because we all want our friend from Ukraine in the Union, but you go to explain to the farmers, now you will get less money because we have opened to Ukraine. You go to southern Italy to say there is no money for the region underdeveloped because we have opened to the Western Balkans with Georgia. So you see, and I don't say that we should choose. I say we have to do both. To do both, we have to be clear with our citizens, and this is why we had launched the treaty revision as European Parliament under Article 48, paragraph 2, already in November last year, because we wanted to push the Council to decide now to launch the treaty revision after the election. Why? Because we thought that in this way we would oblige all the political parties, all the candidates running in the European election to take position on it. The Council doesn't want to kick the can down the road. But this is the point, and this is why we need also good book like Time for European Federation, which is after 2 years, is still very updated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gozi. Can I ask a short follow-up question? Short follow-up question. All these nice messages which sell well here in Brussels within our cycles, how easy are they to sell to the French ordinary people? Because I'm very worried about the opinion polls. The far right or hard right of Le Pen has a very clear lead. Macron's party and the other parties look to be struggling. What is your strategy there, or what is your message?
Well, first of all, I mean, the real European campaign in France hasn't started yet. It will be very short, very intensive. It will last 3 weeks. Now, most of the French, and they don't have. I think that a very minority is aware that know that we are voting on the 9th of June. So I mean, really at the very beginning, it is clear that in my view, we have also to put on the table this issue. In my view, there are two axes for the campaign and to win our race against the extreme right, but also, I mean, to be effective. I'm talking about for my list compared to other lists. And the two axes are parallel. On one side, you have to explain, to present the Europe of concrete solutions. What is Europe is already doing for you and what we have done on the purchasing power. Pouvoir d'achat is a big issue. Why the reform of the energy market? Why the fact that we got a monetary union? It is a very good shield for the purchasing power because France had an inflation of 10-12% and the interest rate was 5-7% before joining the Eurozone, before the monetary union. We have to recall also, to explain to the new generation and to recall to the generation what was the situation 20 years ago. So, I mean, what is the concrete solution? The first axis. The second axis is to explain in a very simple way what are the real issues at stake at European level. Because it is clear that if you go to the French citizens and say, we have to modify Article 222 and insert also this information in the solidarity clause together with terrorists, they look at you like if you are coming from Mars. But if you have to say, listen, do you want to export our stability or import our instability? Do you want export prosperity or import war? Do you prefer enlargement or the encirclement? And this is why we want to unify the continent. But yes, we know it's not your farm, it's not your region who is going to have to pay for that. So we need also to tackle the issue of own resources, etc. This might be the way that we have the way to tackle this issue. This is, in any case, the way with which I am already tackling this issue, but I'm not the only one.
It seems reasonable to me. I wish stamina and good effort with this. We will come back to the issues that Mr. Gozi raised. Maybe Mara can also give us a different angle, the angle of civil society, what federalists and especially young federalists can do in passing the message about a more integrated Europe, pro-European values, and of course active participation in the European Parliament elections.
Thank you very much, and thank you for this presentation, Mr. Gozi. I do not only want to talk about what federalists can do concerning the upcoming elections, because I think it's important that everybody is getting engaged and getting involved. So not only like the ones that are already motivated and are following the European news, but also I think the most important point would be don't shy away to discuss things. Don't shy away to say, no, this is not right. Because what I experienced when I'm speaking to young people, to first-time voters, is that there are a lot of fake news. They are believing things. And I think like here we are mostly a European bubble, I will say this. But we should use this bubble also and use our expertise and bring it abroad and not shy away to discuss topics, and also to have confronted a person that might have another point of view. So to be open, to tolerate different opinions, to discuss it, and to bring the European voice abroad. So I think like I can give an example what the JEF, like the European federalists are doing, is that we are going to schools and we explain just like the basics of the institutions and the European Union, but also we organize different weekends and have their activities. For example, okay, how can we speak to people? How can you better explain European policy topics, etc.? But this is on an organizational level. I would reduce it down to an individual level. Just take the normal situation of you're having a family dinner. Probably you all went home for Easter, so you had some family dinners, and there a hot topic comes up, I don't know, nature restoration law. There might be even in one family different opinions on this legislation. There might be fake news. There might be a big discussion, a heated discussion, but do not shy away. Take this discussion, take this opportunity, stand up for a pro-European opinion and get engaged, and also remind to go vote, of course, and really to have this buffer, because I think it was already mentioned several times indirectly, but not really directly. The surveys are looking a bit bad concerning the European integration and the process of the European project. Because if we follow the surveys, anti-European voices will get stronger. So I think it's the task and the mission of everybody to go out there and keep the message of how great the European project is. I mean, Mr. Gozi already mentioned some examples, and you too in the introduction, so I won't repeat it. But I think it's really important to be open for discussions and to debunk fake news and false information.
Thank you, Mara. And I would like to complement the importance of us being also active on social media. Sometimes some of us have good ideas but are shy even on social media. We prefer to post our holiday photo, which is of course welcome. But after for every 3 holiday photos, it would be also nice to have a photo or a message about our duties as citizens. At least this is my personal perspective. So, Mariia, at least the way I perceive the news from Ukraine are really worrisome at this point. We are in a very critical moment. Everybody is worried. Ammunition is running low. Maybe the morale is running low or not. I hope not. Where Ukraine is waiting for the Americans to finally approve the 60 billion package. In Europe, the Czech Republic is trying to gather ammunition's 800 cells on behalf, gathering everybody's money in order to procure this cell and other ammunition to Ukraine. How is the feeling in the Ukrainian society, and what do you do for this, and what we can do for this?
Hi, my name is Mariia.
Thank you so much for introduction. Thank you to all the speakers. I'll say just a few words about myself, and then I would like to share 2 stories. So, on one hand, I work in international advocacy. I work in a Ukrainian advocacy group that is now representing interests of the country here in Europe. On the other hand, I happen to work and take such a political position just because the war started in my country, and all my life before I was a cultural social activist. So I was always around people, and I was always the one who knew what society is thinking about. Recently, after being 2 years, this is the first story, after being 2 years in Europe, I went back home for the first time. I went back to Ukraine for the first time after fleeing as a refugee. I met with old friends. I reconnected with all communities I was a part of. And you know what I discovered? That people in Ukraine, even though for the last 2 years, each citizen, especially the ones that were staying in the country, are living in war conditions, people are not ready for the war. As thanks to my position and the job I'm doing, I have a privilege of being connected to the people that are all over Ukrainian institutions, European institutions. I have friends that are advisors in NATO, that are advisors to representatives of European authorities. And I have a privilege of getting information directly from them about how the situation at the Ukrainian front line really is. And we know that information is our most powerful instrument, tool, weapon, we can say, because it is being weaponized by many, parties like Russia, for instance, with all the propaganda. And unfortunately, having all this privilege of having access to this information, I am aware that right now the situation on the front line is critically bad. Me personally, I'm from Kharkiv. This is the second biggest city in Ukraine, the one 60 kilometers from Russian border. And right now, at my job behind closed doors, and as well as all the military strategists I know personally, everyone is already prepared for Kharkiv being occupied within a few months. We do not have enough human resource. We do not have enough military capacities. We do not have enough funds to sustain the army. And unfortunately, internally in Ukraine, our government is not fully, securing the mission of encouraging people to join the military forces. In fact, Ukrainians are also being influenced by Ukrainian internal propaganda that is, kind of communicating the fact that it's all way better than it seems to be. So coming back to what I was saying before, Ukrainian people are not ready for the war that is only coming for us. When I hear from a friend of mine who's now taking a military training in Kiev, living in Kiev, in the capital, and during the military courses, they actually prepare him to take a fight near Kiev, on a Kiev landscape, which obviously means that our authorities do realize that this is very likely this fight is going to happen. And when I go outside and I see people who do not even realize what's coming for them and are not being prepared for that, nor physically nor mentally, it's scary. It's scary not just for the fact that the fight is going to happen, but for the fact of how unprepared we all are right now. So Yanis said that I'm running many projects. One of the projects I'm running is a private initiative to raise funds to secure free military training for Ukrainian citizens as one of the things. Besides, I just want to ask a simple question.
before I described the situation to you right now, could you please raise hands how many of you were aware of everything I just told you? And this is amazing that here in this room we have people that are informed, right? This is our power, this is our tool. And it's our responsibility to spread it further, because unfortunately, when we go outside both in Ukraine and in Europe, people do not realize what's actually coming. And right now, when we talk about elections that are going to be so crucial in terms of, what in destiny my country, but also all Europe is going to have, because we clearly understand that once we have fights near Kiev, it's not good for none of us, right? It's not only about Ukraine. As well as latest, promises from France, from dear Mr. Macron about sending boots on the ground, quote unquote, as he promised in case one of the big Ukrainian cities is being under threat of occupation, which it's soon going to be. Words are great, but what is important right now is we need to choose people that are capable not just of words, but of bold actions. Because trying to keep it, hidden away in terms of informing societies, looking away from a bomb that is about to explode any minute, is probably not the best strategy. So for us to be prepared and for us to be able to go through this, we need to be daring enough to take bold decisions, not just on the level of politicians, but as Mara said, I agree a lot that it's a personal responsibility of each citizen, because to have their full leaders, we have to demand them. And before each one of us does, it's not gonna come. So both in Ukraine and in Europe, the outcome of this story is the personal responsibility of each one of us. Because as in Ukraine, I'm now running this program that is creating this ecosystem for military training, which is helping for Ukrainian citizens to take responsibility for their lives, to be honest, not even for their country, just to get prepared for taking a fight and increasing their chances to survive this fight. Just as it's about taking a responsibility on themselves for people in Ukraine, it's also simply about taking responsibility here in Europe. And my message, main one here, is that looking away does not solve the problem. So now we are at the moment when each one of us has to stop looking away and be very straightforward and very realistic about what's going on. Because it's not better than it seems. Unfortunately, it is worse than it seems. Unfortunately, without having enough of these bold actions from all the parties, from a place where Ukraine was successfully fighting back the pieces of our territory step by step. Now, for the first time within all this time, since the full-scale invasion, so a bit more than 2 years, we're at the place where we are nearly losing the war. And, consequentially, this is also the time where Ukraine is least spoken about within the last 2 years. Because there are more conflicts happening, and by the way, I'm also half Israeli, so I do not, disvalue on any level the conflict that is happening in Middle East, and my soul is also there. However, Ukraine is something closer to our reach, and our decisions here are affecting the outcome of the war in Ukraine way more, and way more directly. And right now, it is a pivotal moment. It is true. So, please, get yourself informed. Do not, escape from depressing news, because they are depressing. And I was myself, I had it moment of time when I was like, okay, I cannot handle reading so many stories about dead bodies on the streets of my city. But by looking away, we do not solve this. So please, let's be brave. That's something all of us need now, not just Ukrainians. And please, let's make sure that our laws and our system is actually serving for protecting human rights and human lives as it was invented to. And when we see that our laws are actually, something that's blocking us away from fulfilling this mission of protecting human rights, well, probably it's time to change the laws, because laws are made by people, same people as we are. And it's a matter of a decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariia. And maybe to enhance this message, we should always remember that first, these European Parliament elections are also elections about the European stance towards Ukraine. And I think there is a black and white framework here, yes or no to defending Ukraine. I think things are getting very clear. And I'm just wondering, this is a question for Mariia, but also for the rest of the audience, how can we practically help if I really have 100 or 1,000 euros to allocate as a private donation somewhere? What is the most urgent priority in your view?
So I'll answer the question the way you asked it, and then I'll say what is the urgent thing we can do as Europe. So first and foremost, something none of the government authorities would tell you: please do not trust governmental foundations, because as any governmental structure, it's all stuck in bureaucracy. And when money are being sent to governmental foundations, they are being stuck in the system, and the needs that they are supposed to cover are getting covered. They are getting covered, but in many, many days from the moment they were actually requested. So please, if you do have a willing to support Ukraine, please do donate to small private volunteers associations that are just citizens that took responsibility and not fighting the war themselves, being at the front lines, but are supporting soldiers and providing soldiers with everything they need. Those are cars, those are medical kits, those are medical cars, the ambulances, and all of that. And those are crucially important because these things do save lives. Besides, Yanis was mentioning about this before already. There is this beautiful number of 350 billion euros, which is the worth of confiscated private Russian assets stored in the European Central Bank for the last 2 years. Right now, these money are only being used as a way to generate some extra funds internally in Europe. However, technically, this money are out of, they don't have any service of them. This amount is a third part of all the destruction costs since the beginning of the war. So the total worth of all the destructions as for now is around 1 trillion euro. And by this 350 billions, I'm not even talking about recovery now, because we do have, many programs that are already being launched about Ukrainian recovery. However, I really do want to urge all of us that we first need to think about our survival, because then there is going to be nothing to, rebuild. There is this beautiful Ukraine Facility Platform initiative, which is distributing 50 billions that were assigned to Ukraine recently by the European institutions. However, not much of that money is actually going for military causes. Most of that money is dedicated for the rebuilding Ukraine, which is not the first priority right now. So I do want to highlight the fact that using this money for protecting the front line, at least as it is if not pushing Russian troops further back, but at least helping us to have a capacity to hold front line as it is right now, is crucial. And unfortunately, we do need a lot of money for that. So this budget is something that can be used to cover it. Besides, Euroclear, a Belgian institution, also is operating the budget of 50 billion euro, a bit more than 50 billion euro that were generated thanks to the private Russian assets stored in Belgian financial institutions. Out of this 350 billion all over Europe, Belgium contains around 280 something billions. Basically, based on that money, there were 5 extra billions generated, and those 5 extra billions would be very helpful as well, as the legal procedure of transferring the 5 billions is way easier than transferring the 350 billions, just because of, who this money belongs to. So we are hitting the same wall of laws that are not helping us to protect human lives in this particular case. And for the last year, me and my team, one of our main goals is basically advocacy for the change of those laws. The good news is we do have, we are starting to have political will supporting this. So we do have a big progress in France, we do have a big progress in Belgium, we are working to have a good progress in Germany. However, this is also something each one of us has to talk about, because most of European citizens are not even aware. And this is, again, circling us all back to the personal responsibility of not only being informed, but also informing the ones around us, and making sure that the ones around us are learning to think critically and learning to make conclusions of their own, not just, repeating an information they've heard from someone. And each one of us can be a mediator to teach people around us to do so. I think it's very crucial to do that.
Thank you, Mariia. If I can make a last follow-up question to Mr. Gozi about this issue, and then we can open the floor for discussion with you. Mr. Gozi, how do you see the Ukrainian issue playing in France right now? Is it a popular topic to speak about? Is the French public behind President Macron's initiative to send boots on the ground? And also, is France really sincerely strong enough to support, because France is the biggest military power in the European Union, can it really back all these big plans to support Ukraine?
No, unfortunately, I do not feel, but there are some French here. I really don't feel that Ukraine is going to be the main reason why the French voters are going to determine the vote. Certainly there is an issue, but it is an issue which is more and more felt as how long it's going to last and how much we have to pay. Certainly it depends on it is difficult to answer your question in general, because it depends also on the different voters. Certainly our potential voters or our actual voters are certainly very much sensitive to the Ukrainian issue. They think that the Ukrainian issue is must be part of the reason why we need to give ourselves more power, with the reason why we have to accelerate the European action, the reason why we have also to reform the Union. But I wouldn't say that the general French public opinion is going to determine first on the Ukrainian issue. I would say that there are other issues which are more at the center of the worries, which can be related also to the conflict. But I would say purchasing power, pouvoir d'achat, is an obsession. Migration is also an obsession. There are many issues of domestic policy. Honestly, what do you want to do with Putin? Do you want to tell, since the very beginning, to Putin, do what you want, because in any case we will never step up our reaction? Or you want to remain ambiguous enough to not let him understand what will be our reaction if things turn in the wrong way? This is what Emmanuel Macron did. Then you can say, well, the modalities, etc. But the initiative at the Élysée, when there were all the, many, not all, there were some who were missing, but many European leaders there, the discussion was very substantial. It was very clear that, I mean, Putin wouldn't stop with Ukraine. I mean, if you want to give a real meaning to all what we said, we said we have to be to live up to the challenges of history. If we lose the battle in Ukraine, Putin won't stop in Ukraine. And as we want to stop Putin, we need also to leave some ambiguity on what could be the reaction if the things gets harder and more difficult. So I mean, I understand the criticism, also some Ukrainian friends understand your criticism, but I mean, pay attention, because we can be very ineffective. We can have all the weaknesses and defaults in the world. We are, in the European Union, the first one in terms of support to Ukraine. Because if you put together military, macroeconomic assistance, political refugees, and other forms of support, opening the internal market, we are those who have supported the Ukraine the most. And we have to continue to do so. We have done the impossible. It was unthinkable to use the European money. Okay, European peace facility, not exactly the budget, but we did it. And we have to accelerate. I mean, I understand also the criticism when I go to Washington, and during my mandate I have been to the White House and the Congress very often, at least 2 or 3 times per year. And I understand the American, what are you doing? You should do more. Of course, we should do. We should be more quicker in the things that we have started to do now, because we never bought together the weapons. But I mean, I would put a pinch of salt to the criticism, because it is very difficult, and it's going to be very difficult to persuade our citizens that they have to pay more to support a war outside the European Union. We want to do it. I told you what I said this morning, but let's try to be balanced, because there are many forces also in France that would have made a deal with Putin instead of Ukraine. I mean, if Marine Le Pen had been at the Élysée, we should probably have participated in the war, but supporting Putin. Because that's what they were saying. Because Marine Le Pen has said, well, I mean, Thierry Mariani, a colleague of mine in the European Parliament, has said, well, what is criticism of Putin? After all, there are elections in Russia. There are elections, and I don't give a damn, even if there have been some problems, but there have been elections. So, I mean, this is the situation. It is very worrying. It is very delicate. So, I mean, there were elections, so what do you want after all? I mean, no problem. No, then if we do election, killing the opponents, look at Navalny, and buying the fake opponents, that's an issue. But there is election. So I mean, this is the tragic moment that we are living. So in the tragic moment we are living, I would be a little bit less critical of Emmanuel Macron, who is the only leader who has been bold enough to say things like the stand, and to try to put the European to face the harsh reality. The harsh reality is that we have to go through a fundamental change, that war is possible in the continent, and that we have to react accordingly, because war is not something that cannot happen to us. War is something that can happen to us again in this turbulent war. So we have to give ourselves the mean. Prevention is better than ex post intervention. We have to give ourselves the mean to avoid that the conflict spread around.
I just want to finish this first round with a personal confession and regret. When I published this book, I shaded Europe in blue, proposing that all this blue part becomes the future federation. It's the EU, United Kingdom, and some others. I left deliberately Ukraine out. Ukraine is not in. Why? Because at that time, 2021, I thought Ukraine is still too big, maybe too corrupted, too problematic with regards institution building to be part of a future federation. 2 years later, or 3 or 4, if I rewrite the book, if I make the second edition, I will definitely include Ukraine and Moldova in the future European Union and European Republic. However, still with a big asterisk, because as also Mariia said, government institutions are still not to be trusted. So it is a huge project to integrate Ukraine into the future European family. It's critical. We will need it for the food security. Its agriculture is superb. Industrial development, young people, very smart, very innovative. They are already leaders in IT, in cyber economy, in cyber security. Big assets, but also big challenges. Even if the war stops now and Ukraine becomes a very peaceful place, there is still a mountain to climb in order to catch up with us. Because we ourselves have problems with the still new member states like Bulgaria, Romania, Poland, Hungary, even Greece. Greece is an old member state, but still with big issues of corruption, institutions, and so on. I stop here. The floor is to you. Glad to receive your comments, your interventions. Please limit them to maximum 2 minutes, because maybe it would be a good idea to finish by 8:30, not to make it too tiresome for everybody.
Idea.
Exactly.
Sorry, but it's a long day for me.
Let's start with Mr. Attila, then we will follow the rows, not to lose the order. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your invitation. I'm Attila Kalandar from Arab Media Platform from Brussels. Well, I want to say I'm very grateful here to be with you. And also I speaking this about election of European election in from the 4 to 7 March was passed in European Commission. I will say that we must be more democratic. We must be more participation. Of course, we are here. I am the only foreigner, not European, presented here, because I am not older European citizen, but I am in Europe since 55 years and over from 1968. Well, I want to say that we must be more chance for the people like with me. And we give the election vote priority also for the non-European residents in Europe, which is they are over the 10 years. And I think this is more important to be participation. That time the people, European and non-European, will be collective, and we are here as many different countries. The non-European, when we say that, even from the United States, from the Canada, and from the Japan, or for another people, also they are inside of this community. So I hope in this is now late for do it, but hope you must put your point for the next election. Hope it will be grateful to be together, young European, because I am father of the young European people here. Thank you.
Yes. The question.
Should we maybe gather 3-4 questions first and then take answers on the row?
You?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you for your intervention and your testimony. Very interesting, very important. I'd like to focus on treaty revision because your first intervention was that was the core of your proposal, and if we share your view, as you know, and we've got to keep fighting for it. By the way, we see at the moment an inflation of promises and proposals for common policies that entail the fact that we need to make the treaty revision, but no one says it. So I think it's very important to recall that. So because that this person, or they are fooling themselves, or about fooling us, or both of it, that we got to be very clear on that. That being said, as you also said, we got to be realistic. It's very difficult thing. It will be also very difficult with the incoming elections, because of unanimity. So they don't have to stop fighting for it, but for sure. But we also have to think about the ways to give the possibility to those who want to move ahead to do it. So we have tools for that, of course, enhanced cooperations. So as you've seen, Mario Draghi, in the last speech he did to social partners, that was translated, by the way, and invite you to read it. It was published in Argentina yesterday. Also spoke about enhanced cooperation. So there are very interesting tools. There are positive effects. There are also negative effects, by the way. So I'm sorry, because it's a very precise question, but I would like to have your views on that. How do you see the possibility to have more enhanced cooperation and the effect it might have on the integration process? Thank you.
One more question, and we will come back.
So, question is targeted mainly to Mr. Gozi. We were talking about the elections and how the polls look rough. And this is, I think, the most true, sadly, for the election that you are also running for Renew Europe. It's often said that the House divided is not as strong. And this is true for Europe, and that's why we must unite, I believe. But some people say the same about, well, all the pro-European factions, and especially you are one of 3 candidates leading Renew, and I would be curious to hear your thoughts on how we can come together more as a pro-European movement and maybe come up with one message after yours.
Thank you. Okay. Mara, would you like to make a first comment about the citizenship issue, which is also in my heart?
Ahlan wa sahlan wa shukran. I'm so grateful that you made this comment, because I was thinking about it, doing it after our round. We were speaking a lot about we have to change laws and we have to do this and this the leaders should do and this, but we have to take along the society. We cannot, the leaders cannot decide everything top down, because we see it now, some things have been decided top down and tide is turning. And also what you said about social equality, it's so important. I will just give an example. We all know the Maslow's pyramid, I think. You have basic needs, then you have middle needs, and then you have the higher needs. And so if there are people that do not even have the basic needs, they will not even think about the higher needs. So how can we suppose or expect these people to think about European elections or European policy and think about our neighbor country, Ukraine, if they don't even have enough to eat, or if they don't even can follow the school because they have to work, or they have to work 3 jobs and everything. So at the end, of course, we can spin the circle and we can say, this is why we need the European Union, why we need even further competences on European level to avoid that people do not even have the basic needs. But we also have to go the other way around, not only argumenting, okay, because these people are existing, we need further competences on European level and further support, but also we need to tackle it in beforehand. And I mean, I think you would say it, but in a military context, to spend not only more money, but also to better spend it, and to really have dedicated programs and to leave nobody behind, because at the end it's nice to be here to have this discussion, but we really have to go to abroad, to go to the rural areas, to go to the people that are maybe, I would say, entre guillemets, disadvantaged, that do not have the privilege to be here as we all have now, and that do not have the chance to come from a good household or to be educated, etc. So that's why I said take the discussion, bring abroad the topics and your message, and we really have to get society along. Concerning your second point, you were talking a bit about migration. I have been dealing a bit with translation policy at the European level, and I mean, we have all the European languages there, but still languages of a lot of people that come to the European Union and that have been out there for years. Their mother tongue is not represented in the translation policy of the European Union. So just for example, in 2015, a lot of refugees from Syria came. Their first language, their mother tongue, is Arabic. So if they want to get more knowledge about the topic on the European Union, they have to go via another language. So they don't have the same privilege as we have, because like most of us who are here have a European mother tongue. So I think it's really important to also integrate these people, because most of them can also vote now. They are now European citizens, and we should not leave them out. And this is why I'm really grateful that you made this comment. So really to remember, yeah, we have to change laws, but laws will not change if you don't change the people that are doing these laws. So go vote for the future that you want to have, but also you cannot only change a law if you don't take society with, because if you don't take society with, it will not happen, because you have to implement and enforce laws.
And to give a very brief federalist answer to your concern, yes, I believe after 10 years, everybody in the EU should get a citizenship everywhere in the European Union territory. There will also be an EU citizenship. It will be absolutely crazy if people like you cannot still get the citizenship. If Maria, after 8 years, is already 2 years here, it will be crazy if she will not be able, after 8 years, to get an EU citizenship, or anybody else here. Fully integrated, fully active citizens already. Why not?
Why not?
Mr. Gozi.
Okay, no, I agree with what I heard. It is clear that, I mean, it is also very difficult when you started to do things from the other way around, and you go really against the waves. Because after all, the conference of the future of union was exactly this. We have been criticizing for years and years that we were taking decisions behind closed doors, and we have launched a process, first time in the history of the European Union. Huh? There are some examples at national level, in Ireland, in France, by the first time in the history of the European Union that we had said we asked 1,000 people, of which 1/3 under 25 years old, to meet, discuss together about what they want, more, better, less, from Europe. And it wasn't in Brussels. We haven't been helped.
Oh, it wasn't a reproach.
We haven't been helped. No, it's not a reproach, but I'm using much worse. We haven't been helped neither by the media. I don't know how many times I told the journalists, but listen, I mean, don't come to talk to me. Go to the young bank employee from Estonia who has decided, without having any European expertise, to spend 1 year meeting citizens from the other 26 member states to discuss about Europe. Go to say the young entrepreneur. Go to see the pension, the retired German. Go and ask him, what do you decide to come here? At least this. And I didn't think it wasn't uninteresting for the general public. I think the general public would have liked to read about the stories. I mean, a German retired person who decided to spend 1 year and a half discussing about Europe. You could build up general public stories. It wasn't conceived as a process among the happy few. But, I mean, the media didn't pay enough attention. how can you reach the general? I mean, so, first of all, you are criticized because you don't do this. Then when you do it, you are criticized because people do not know it. But I mean, there is also responsibility of the media. There is responsibility also of organized civil society. Because we had the digital platform open to everybody in Europe, and we didn't see a massive contribution from non-European, non-traditional European organized civil society. So I mean, you see that it is not like that. It's not only you usually to do top down. You usually to follow a top-down approach. Now we have to do bottom up, because when you do bottom up, it's difficult. And the experience, but we have to continue. I think that we should do a conference of the future of the Union every year. We have proposed as Renew Agora. We have to propose as Renew to prepare each State of the Union debate, which for the happy few present here, you all know what it is. So to prepare the debate, to plan the following year legislative and political initiative by starting with Agora, with a sort of conference, at least in each region of the European Union. We could certainly do it. So we have to build up upon that. To answer to the question on enhanced cooperation, Mario Draghi's speech, etc., I have made some declaration, not with the Italian press, where I said I fully share what Mario Draghi says, except on treaty revision. Because we cannot be too realistic. I mean, we cannot be more realistic than the reality. So I think that we are not this dumb and stupid not to be able to launch two processes. So I think that after the European election, we certainly have to act with the right sense of urgency. So to start to do things with those who are willing to do things on investment union, on defense, on big European industrial project, and to start immediately by exploiting, from the institutional point of view, what do we have. So certainly we can start with enhanced cooperation. But in my view, enhanced cooperation clause as such haven't been conceived to develop a comprehensive political project. Have been conceived to get rid of a stumbling block after a lengthy negotiation. So in my view, there are some problems in using the current enhanced cooperation clause as a broad political project among those who are willing and able to go faster and deeper towards common goals. But I think that we should do as much as we can with the current treaty in parallel. At the beginning of the new term, we have to say, in this term, we have also to launch a comprehensive treaty reform. And I think that we have the intelligence, the capacity of doing both. On one side, you do your work among the willing leaders, among the willing government, with the support of the European institution. Among those 9, 10, 11, 15, there will be more if you start, willing countries and peoples who want to deepen. And on the other side, you say, we convene a convention, and you let the member of the convention, member of the European Parliament, member of national parliament, representative of the 27 government, and European institution to take their time to work around a fundamental treaty revision. You can do both. So, and that's what I didn't agree with Mario Draghi. Why do you need to say, but not treaty revision? Launch your project. You say, in the short run, of course, we don't have the time to revise the treaty. We need to launch investment union, to accelerate defense, blah, blah, blah. Absolutely. And in parallel, we have to take the 5 years term to do both well-prepared enlargement while letting a convention work. What is the contradiction? You got sense of urgency, short-run action, through enhanced cooperation, through other clauses that are in the treaty, and you got the vision, medium, long-run action, through the convention and through the preparation and negotiation of the enlargement process. This is how I see things, And I think it's perfectly possible. It's a matter of political will, and it's a matter of being honest with our public opinion. It is clear that, to come to your question, for this we need another new pro-European majority. In my view, this pro-European majority, first of all, I mean, let's see the opinion polls and the real polls. I think that the real majority must have, I talk about my political group. I think we are being decisive in shaping the political term in 2019. So I think we've been decisive. And also beyond things like digital regulation, the Green Deal, rule of law, all the things were at the center of our campaign in 2019 and were put at the center of the new mandate. But even things that for this circle are more, familiar, but I wouldn't talk about this in another circle. But we, for the first time, adopted a new European electoral law in the Parliament with transnational list. It wasn't a resolution. It is we activated the special legislative procedure for the first time, and we had put it as a condition to elect Ursula von der Leyen. She didn't help us a lot, but it was a condition. And also what we are saying, for the first time, the European Parliament has activated Article 48 to launch a treaty revision using our power of initiative in this case. So I think that I hope that we can confirm this majority, in which I think we have played a key role with the European People's Party, with the Social Democrats. Personally, I would enlarge it to the Greens. We have already asked the Greens in 2018. They refused. I think that this time they should join. I am personally, but I am against doing a deal with the ECR, because I think that ECR is extreme right as much as ID, if not more. And so, I mean, if they want to vote the new president of the Commission, even the PiS voted Ursula von der Leyen in 2018, but we are against striking a political alliance with the ECR, because for me, Vox is not better than Rassemblement National, and for me, Fratelli d'Italia is not better than PiS or Alternative für Deutschland. And so it is clear. So for us, there are limits. So don't ask me the question. Invite a member of the European People's Party. Invite Manfred Weber, Antonio Tajani, Roberta Metsola, Ursula von der Leyen, and ask them, what do you want to do? Do you want to confirm the pro-European majority, or what do you want to strike a deal with this year? Because the two things are not compatible. Then it is clear that you can draw a distinction between a deal with the main political groups and leaders in the European Council on who will do what concerning the top jobs, and that I would say that is a sort of institutional issue, and a political alliance with a shared program. For the second one, ECR has no place for me, and for us, basically.
Thank you, Mr. Gozi. Let's go for the next round of questions. The gentleman, the lady, how many more? Berta. We have 5. Please keep it 1 minute each in order to cut.
I have to go.
To catch the 8:30 deadline, or 8:35. Anyway, let's make this compromise. Yes, please.
No, my serious question. I'm curious about the Ukrainian take on federalism as such, because you're in the process of building your nation for the moment and reclaiming your sovereignty, establishing your sovereignty. That if you want to take Europe in this direction with federation, we want to merge the countries, how willing would the public be to go in this direction after this? I see a bit of a contradiction in these two things.
Thank you.
So my name is Anastasia. If I may, I just give a quick comment and quick question. So as a Ukrainian myself, I completely agree with what Mariia said, how you can support Ukraine. But also I would like to add that also you can support Ukraine by voting for the members to the parliament who support Ukraine. So then you saw two issues. First, as we have a limited representation in the European institution because we are not part of European Union, and European Union is a crucial partner for us because you help a lot in this war to us and in general. then we will have our voice in the parliament through your members. That's, I am not saying you to vote a certain specific member. It should align with your political information, but also please check the clear stance of the member on Ukraine. And then my question, so I also volunteer in Promote Ukraine. Maybe you heard about this organization. So we are trying to advocate the interest of Ukraine also in the EU and EU institutions. And me as a Ukrainian, of course, I know what is happening in my country, even though I'm not in the front line, but I do read the news. The general public, they have fatigue, they have their problems, they are not reading news so frequently. However, we can expect from the political actors and politicians to know, to be involved in the situation. But based on my experience, sometimes it's not the case. So my question, I would say it's I would like to ask you the suggestions from your experience in your countries, in the political sphere here. What would you suggest to Ukrainians who are trying to advocate the interest of Ukraine here in the European institutions and for European politicians? What should we do? What words we should use? What tools we should use with European politicians to be more involved, to advocate more Ukrainian interests and to be pro-Ukrainian, to incentivize them to support us? Thank you.
Thank you. Good point. Berta?
Yeah, I hope to keep it brief. Just three short comments to Mariia. Mariia, I was a little bit surprised when you said that people in Ukraine are not aware of what's coming to them in terms of the war. I have a lot of friends from Kiev, and they go back for different reasons. They go back to do paperwork or to look after family or whatever, and they come back very traumatized, having had all the air raid alarms, having lost relatives and things like that. So how could people not be aware? That was number one. Number two, in my personal circle of friends, I see friends and colleagues, acquaintances, almost everybody's in a bubble, and it's very hard to talk to them about Ukraine. I've surrounded myself with a lot of Ukrainians for 2 years, so I get a lot of Ukrainian input, for which I'm very grateful. But it's very hard to talk to other people about it. They say, yeah, they have to win. And you can tell they don't ask me any questions. And the latest phenomenon is they said, let them finally go into peace talks, let them give away, the four regions, and everything will be honky-dory. So that's the private sphere. And then in the European institutions, I'm a simultaneous interpreter. And on the one hand, I'm always really pleased and quite proud to see that the Union seems to back Ukraine, the Parliament more especially, or more visibly. But then when I see Ukrainian delegations come to the meetings, or sometimes speakers, mayors, the mayor of Irpin, for example, or the mayor of Bucha, they came to the European Economic and Social Committee. They give us these frightening accounts. We should all be shaken, and there's almost no question. And I'm really ashamed as a European to say, hey, they're advocating loudly and visibly for Ukraine, but then nobody asks these Ukrainians any questions. And I don't understand the phenomenon. It's a little bit like what you said. How to get through to these people.
Thank you, Lizzie.
Yeah.
2 more questions.
Yes.
Yes, please.
I want to say about partiality and ambiguity of this back in Ukraine on this support. We spoke about nice words saying by Macron, which might be most pro-Ukrainian in French politics, but we know that France still imports a lot of energy from Russia and pays billions and billions of dollars for paying for the war. On the other hand, we see how European military comprehensively rejected missile attack on Israel from Iran. Right? There is nothing such examples in Ukraine. And again, we saw farmers' strikes, which protested against Ukrainian grain. And no one word I heard from them protested against Russian grain, which is twice as much as Ukrainian, imported to the European Union.
Thank you. If I might answer very briefly to the first point, federalism is not about centralizing all power in Brussels. Federalism is about keeping the right level of competence to the right competence to the right level.
Thank you.
Mr. Gozi wants to go. I would like to thank him very much.
Yeah.
It has been very informative.
You are able to answer to all the questions. So.
Thank you very much. So, federalism is about assigning the right competence to the right level. On the big things, defense, foreign affairs, let's do it all together as Europeans. But what makes a Ukrainian feel Ukrainian will remain there. The competence on culture, education, language, local environmental protection will remain with the national entities of the Federation. So, Ukraine, for instance, or Germans or Greek will keep their Greek language, flags, emblems, national football teams, whatever, as they are today. This is the best way to gain the trust of people in this big federal project and idea. Maria, I think you should respond, and Mara also.
So I want to start with the question about how people can be not aware. There is a big difference between living in a peaceful country and in, let's say, non-occupied city of a country in war. But there is this as big difference between living in Kiev, for example, or in Vinnytsia, and being, a soldier on the front line. Fortunately or unfortunately, it's not the politicians who win wars, but in the end, it's still soldiers that are holding, that are holding the front line there. And as I was mentioning before, in the very first part of the speech, right now we do not have simply enough people.
Right.
Also, not because we don't have enough volunteers, because based on the latest social polls, right now, there are more than 1 million men only, not counting in women, who are also fighting in Ukraine, but men only. There is about 1 million of people who are ready to go to the front line tomorrow if they are guaranteed with having proper preparation, proper equipment, and all of that, right?
And the time limit.
And the time limit, there are many little details that our government is not really able to fully secure. And what I'm meaning when I say that people are not ready for war means that people do live in war conditions and they do hear explosions and fire alerts for 2 years, but they don't know how to fight.
Oh, okay.
But to win this war, we do need to fight, unfortunately. Okay. And going down to the bomb shelter when you hear a siren alert is not enough to win this war.
Yeah.
It's being won by people taking guns in their hands.
Okay.
And to do so, people must be educated, because as we were talking also, it's not directly about Maslow pyramid, but still, we do know that people are only able to take care of the things they understand.
Mm-hmm.
And we also know that the thing that is the scariest for our brain is the unknown. So as long as people are not being provided with proper military training, which our government unfortunately is not providing well enough, people do not volunteer, of course, because war, the actual war, frontline, is something they do not have an idea about. They do not understand what it feels like to be there and jump away from a mine. They don't know what it feels like to drive a tank. They only have heard of that from other soldiers, but it's still in the unknown part.
Yeah, and that also makes people often impatient and a little bit unfair.
Exactly.
Towards their own soldiers, and why are they not progressing?
Exactly. So this is why we do need this education for people not even to go and volunteer more, but just to understand what it is like.
If I may complement this message, answering to Anastasia's question, what should be the message of Ukrainians to Europeans in order for Europeans to feel more engaged? I would propose also a positive message that you are necessary to us.
Yeah,
As I said
absolutely.
before, Ukraine is extremely important for the future food security of Europe because of its very advanced agriculture, more advanced than in Europe. Also because of its young entrepreneurial people. I already have experience. Mariia introduced me to a Ukrainian IT expert in Ukraine, and he solved a problem that I had with Facebook, that 3 European experts, more than 3, for 2 years could not solve this problem. This guy did something magic, I don't know how, so somehow I don't see this particular person as victim of war. I never thought of him as victim of war. I thought him as a partner of mine and actually more advanced than my European partners. Just a small personal example. I'm pretty sure that in the big business world, there are definitely Ukrainian business people, Ukrainian experts, Ukrainian infrastructure in machinery, not only IT.
Yanis, can I share another example?
Yes, please, Giorgio.
The biggest world company in 3D printing in medicine, medical products, is Belgian. It's called Materialize. It's located in Leuven. The boss of Materialize left because he's on pension. Where is he now? He is on the Ukrainian borders because the best experts for printing material, the expertise you have developed to print drones, they are just supplying lots of money, software experience to the Ukrainians, and in return, they get softwares. He's telling me that babche in kitchens in Ukraine are printing drones.
That is true.
Right, on the cost of 350 euros. They say the Russians can do drones for 5,000, we can do it for 350. So if they make 350, the babche with the equipment of the software can print the basis of a drone, which can then be equipped and go to war. So a company which is world leading has gone there because he says we need Ukraine because, like it happens during war, they have become the best.
Yeah. And
So-
by the way, how many of you use Grammarly? So many of you. Guess where it comes from?
Ukraine.
So that should be the message. Send the message to us that you are even better than us in, or equal at least, in many topics, not just victims of war.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, please.
Maybe can I suggest something? I think there's a lot of people, normal people, not people in the bubble or European bubble, media, or connected with Ukrainian people. But a tendency, and I've heard a lot of time, Ukrainian war, it's some kind of an alien war, not already war, but some kind of aliens. But most of all, it's a war by American. I've always a lot of time here, Americans. They put the Ukrainian to ask to enter into the NATO, to enter into the Europe. They put Ukrainian puppets, puppet Ukrainian, the politician, to get against the Russian. It was, in fact, American war where they are involved, and they don't feel involved. As European, they don't see it as an aggression against a European country. It's something on the total, alien country, and we are involved in this kind of war for the interest of a big super power, the American power. And I think probably the most important thing they have to feel, this is a European war. It's something happening to the European people by a regime. By the way, Russia, it's also European in some way. It's a European country. It's not Russia who are the enemy. It's for the actual regime in Russia.
This is maybe.
I think Mara made a point, and maybe she can make it again, about fake news, how to counter disinformation,
Yeah.
and our responsibility on this.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I think we all have like a personal responsibility. And you just mentioned like fake news and misinformation. But I mean, you can join events like this. I will make a bit promotion. I'm sorry.
Please,
it's
go
the
ahead.
end of the panel discussion,
Why
so
not?
I have to. You can join events like this and organizations like, for example, JEF. So JEF Belgium, JEF Brussels, but there's also the European movement. So we are only the younger ones. And to get more information, to get more input, to have kind of these discussions, to get informed, to also maybe have another point of view. I don't know how many of you have been familiar with the federalist thinking? Maybe some hands up. Okay, not so many, so good. Like, yeah, it's good to be open, to come here, to discuss, to hear something new. So yeah, feel free to join us on more events and also to propose events. Like, we are really open. We are open to cooperate. Now this is a cooperation here also, and we are very happy about this. So if you have any interesting ideas, or you know an amazing speaker, or you have an amazing topic or something that you really want to talk about or share with others, feel free also to come to us with this idea and your input, and also to follow us, and we can give you more input. And I'm now speaking, of course, of behalf of JEF, but this is not only for JEF. I think it's in general for all the organizations that are out there, also like the ones that Mariia is representing. It's so important to just get to connected, to create a network, to have different inputs, and to be informed. Because if you're informed, you can debunk fake news and misinformation. And as Mariia also said, you are more passionate about things, or you can understand things better if you know about them. And so really feel free to come to our events, to speak to us. Here are some of our members also here in the room, to ask us questions and to propose your ideas. And we're happy to exchange, to collaborate.
Thank you, Mara. Yes, and I think it's time to close. Before we close, I would like to make a surprise invitation, at least to Giorgio Clarotti, who is my favorite federalist. He's the living, let's say, history of federalism in Brussels. He's the man who, as a young man, campaigned for the establishment of Erasmus. If whoever has benefited from Erasmus, Giorgio was protesting or campaigning on the streets before it was established. So please, could you stand up and give us at least the final message? What is the current activity concerning the European Parliament elections? What do you think we should do as political parties, movements, and what the general message should be?
Elevator pitch in 3 minutes on everything and the rest.
Yes, you can. But I want to give you something.
So, I will stand for Sandro, who has been leaving. He was the president of the European Federalists. I'm a member of the board of the European Federalists. I was a young federalist for 20 years, starting when I was 15, and then when you are 35, you have to leave, right? My father was...
But you stay in the family.
Sorry?
You stay in the family. You only leave the young European
I left it for 20 years. I rejoined when Trump was elected. I said, we have to do something that's not the Federalists. I didn't join the Federalists because my father was in the board of the Federalists. And when you are young, you know, you don't join your father club, right? You do your own stuff. I will not do history or campaigning for Erasmus. I can just bring one example. Erasmus was blocked by France and Germany putting a veto to Erasmus. One person representing AEG Europe, I don't know if any of you would know, so it's the Association of Economic, Frank Biancheri, the founder of AEG Europe, had the privilege of having a lunch. He was a member of the Young French Socialists. He had lunch with Mitterrand and turned him around. He said, you are afraid that the young French are going to study in other French universities. we have, says Mitterrand, the best universities. Why do you want to go in others? And Frank said, because we want to. We want to go to see the Brits. We want to go to the other countries. And if you block us, we will leave and we will not come back. Erasmus, which was being built up by the European Commission. So students like Frank and me, I was president of the Young Scientists in Europe. 2 or 3 years later, we were lobbying with the Commission to turn around France and Germany. And in one meeting, Frank has been able to turn, and history started. Because then Germany was left alone in the council, and they decided to abstain. You know, just like Orban leaving the room.
Okay.
And this is how history can be made. So I learned very young that an association, ganging up with friends, and you can really change the world.
Focusing.
Today, I'll quote Sandro Gozi. It's his idea. When he was leaving the presidency of the European Federalists, he says the message for the European elections should be vote for Ukraine. So if you go on my media, you can just hashtag vote for Ukraine. You will find it all over Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever I'm active. When you vote for whatever you want, whoever you want. Think about the fact that if Ukraine loses the war, we lose everything. Healthcare, inflation, energy security, ecology. Look at ecology in Russia. Putin says, no, ecology is good for Russia because in fact it's warming and so we will be able to cultivate. Okay? 250,000 people have left their homes this week because of the floods in the Ural. Russia and Kazakhstan, 250,000 people. It's not the 20,000 we had here in Belgium and Germany, because Putin doesn't care. So it's really vital that we support Ukraine. Parallel with World War II. In World War II, we end the war because Poland resisted only 3 days to Russia and Germany. We forget that Russia also attacked Poland. On that day, my grandmother is Polish, so it's a history. I'm already enlarged. So it's a history I know well. And there was a very good article in the New York Times, I think it was by Mr. Goldman, who said, we are lucky that Ukraine is resisting for 2 years. If not, we would have World War today. If not, we would have World War, because Putin would not have stopped. The Moldovans were really scared, the Baltics were really scared. Mr. Putin has an imperial view, and he's putting it in action. The Chinese have the same view, but they promised they would do it by 2050, so it's coming.
27.
Yes, 27 in the short term for Taiwan, and then go further.
Yes.
They have a short deadline. So the message is very easy. Ukraine is Europe. Just look at the history of Ukraine. Just look at the company I made. Just look at Grammarly. Just go to Ukraine or read it. Speak with the Ukrainians which are here in Brussels. That's called that. Ukraine is Europe, and we need to defend Ukraine, not for them, but for us. So let's be very egoistical. See for whom you vote. Sandro said it in France. Not only RN has said it, but I was in a meeting with Mr. Mélenchon in 2005. It's very famous because it's on YouTube, not me, but him. He was saying to a student who was saying, oh, we need to vote for enlargement so that we are ready and the Baltics can join. He said, Lithuanians, I don't care about Lithuanians. Are you ready to die for our Lithuanians? Change Lithuanian with Ukrainians, so the extreme left in France, they're ready to let them die. That's the message. Ukraine is Europe. Vote for Ukraine.
Absolutely clear. Thank you very much, Roger. Thank you, everybody.